Okay. Hi there, I'm Pastor Rachel Toon at Wittenberg, and today we're visiting with Katlyn Roberts, a senior at Wittenberg. How you doing,
Hi.
Katlyn? Hi. Tell us about your major.
I'm a fine art major with an education minor. I concentrate in ceramics, and I am mostly in Coca-Cola all the time.
That's right. Those are beautiful. Are those part of your senior thesis?
Yeah, these are part of my thesis project that's been going on for about a year. It's a lot of research at first, and then you start to know what you know and then go with it. So it took me a lot of time doing a lot of research on what I wanted to do and figuring out the color scheme and my decoration. But after I figured out all my glaze combinations and what I was good at, I started making more production of things that were more solidified for a thesis.
They're beautiful. So are they a mug and then a cup on top of it?
Yeah, so my challenge for the thesis was to make something that I've never made before. And I don't like making teapots because that was the other option. And I don't like making teapots. So I really like coffee. That's one of my favorite things multiple times a day is coffee. And what became really popular was pour over coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started making these pour overs so that way I could enjoy a pour over coffee. And it's also a unique way of building them because they each have to have holes at the bottom for the coffee to filter through. And you can use really any kind of cone filter with these pour over coffees, and they work really well. There's actually a lot of testing with these holes. I started with one big hole, and that seemed to drain really quickly, and you didn't really get a lot of the coffee flavor. And so I started doing a lot of research on what made the coffee filter slowly, but not too slow to where it's not draining. And what I figured out was that you needed air to get into the coffee filter. So each one of these has carvings on the inside to have air come through the filter and drain the coffee. And having multiple holes at the bottom makes it filter a little slowly. So that way you get the flavor of all the coffee.
That's really interesting. I love a good cup of coffee. I know what you mean about a good filter and the right holes because I've had pour over coffee that filtered too quickly and it was not as good.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. That's a lot of work. It's amazing.
It was a lot of coffee research.
Yeah. But your long-term plan is more in teaching than it is in your own design, or is it kind of both?
Yeah. My minor in education is the way I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, we only minor in it because I want to teach at a secondary level, and they want us to know more about our content area, which is art, than more about the education, where we'll get a lot of education, but we also want to be well-rounded in our art. So that's why it's considered our major, even though equally they're both a lot of work. But yeah, I do know a lot more art than I would know about math equations and education.
That's right. So, we're doing this with you in your home, me in my home, due to the precautions around coronavirus. And I see your dog walking around a little bit. And earlier I saw your cat. That makes it a little more challenging for you. You're somebody who does all your work in the art building where you had your wheel and the kiln. And then your teaching was in the classroom for student teaching. So both of your areas have been pretty deeply impacted by remote learning. So how have you managed to handle all that?
So it was a big transition from school to home. At first, when I was on campus I still lived in a campus house and kind of brought work home to there and started working from there. But then we officially had to move home. So I was kind of on hold for a little while with my production, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to get done for thesis because I just didn't have the space at home to do things. And we weren't sure what was going to happen with the gallery and if I was going to be able to display work anymore. That obviously isn't going to happen, and we figured that out. And the professors, like our advisors, were really flexible with us and just saying, like, finish the best you can and with what you have. My plan was to have like 32 pieces all displayed in the gallery, but that didn't happen. And I kind of had to make do with what I had, and kind of keep going with what I know how to do easily from my home. Me and my mom spent a lot of time cleaning out our garage, which was a mess. And but we did a really good job cleaning it, and it looks really good now. And then I just moved my wheel in there a couple weeks ago because my advisor was able to let me bring it home.
That's
and that
amazing.
was a haul.
That's
Those things
fantastic.
aren't light.
Yeah.
And I made a mess out of the garage again. So there's tarps everywhere. There's, clay all over the place, but at least there's tarps down, and it's easy to clean up if we just sweep it.
That's
so
right.
that was a challenge, just to get all that set up. That took a little while. And then it was really cold out there in the mornings, and I usually work in the mornings because I work at night at my job. And when it's cold, you don't really feel your fingers when you're throwing. So I tried to get really hot water when I was working, but there's also no water supply out there. So I had to get a bucket, and I don't know how large the bucket was, but it's a pretty big bucket. And I would have to fill that bucket up in the morning at my house and then drag it all the way to my studio. It was not easy. I would have to take a couple breaks on the way because it was really heavy. And the water would get really cold really fast out there. So my hands were numb most of the time, but I was able to throw a lot of things. And then I guess, like, when I'm at my studio in Coke, it's organized chaos in there, but it's like my organized chaos where I know where everything's at. I know my space around me, so I know when I'm not going to hit things or anything or bump into things. But when I went and moved into the garage, it was really cold, and I really didn't know. I didn't have a lot of counter space, so I didn't know how I was going to, like, keep everything together and also covered so that way it didn't dry out too quickly. And I had this one shelf, and it's not big, but I knew I was going to use that for a little bit of it. I was getting something down from storage, and I bumped into that shelf, and, like, all of my lids to my jars cracked, and I had to redo the tops of them probably two or three times because my dog also ate some clay of that too. Yeah. So it's been, like, really hard adjusting to all the elements of, my space, surroundings, and animals. And my room has become part of my studio too. When it's too cold outside, I'll, like, do transfers in my room because that's pretty easy. And sometimes I'll carve into things outside on my porch if it's too messy, but it's been a lot of mess and a lot of cleaning.
You've had to be very adaptive.
Yeah.
Everything has had to be adapted. You've done a lot of problem solving in this time. Those are life skills no one really wanted to have at this point for this reason. What have you, what's been kind of a life lesson through all of that for you?
Definitely to be flexible and take things with a grain of salt. So, I think the biggest lesson with education is always to be on your toes. In the classroom, when we're teaching, we're always on our toes with students. You never know what they're going to say or what they're going to do. So, thinking on your feet is kind of our motto. And so I think being adaptable and being flexible and thinking on my feet has helped me through all this. And, kind of going with the flow. That's something I've had a hard time with, going with the flow. Usually I'm a very structured person. I had a very detailed plan about thesis that I had, and when that kind of blew up, I had to take a step back from it and just say, what, it is what it is. I'm not the only one, and just go with the flow of what I have.
I imagine that'll really help as a teacher, having empathy for students who are going through a difficult time, perhaps, and then you'll bring to it that memory of having to change everything in one semester and adapt all of your thinking about it. It'll make you, I think, you're already an empathetic person, but it'll make you an even more empathetic teacher. You have to have grace towards yourself, grace towards the student. Uh, it's a lot to take in, though. Yeah.
Agreed.
So, getting close to graduation now.
Yeah.
What's hardest right now in the big picture with that, and what's helped you during it?
The hardest thing would be probably getting a job.
Mm,
I'm starting to apply to places, but with everything going on, you have no idea like how they're going to hire. Obviously, in-person interviews probably won't happen for a long time, so getting, adapted to virtual interviews and learning all this different software that they could use is definitely important to know. And but I have a lot of support, a lot of friends and family that have helped me through the application process and looking forward to things. So I think having that support definitely helps in my situation, and reaching out to professors and stuff as well. They're always there for us too.
mm-hmm. You were first a painter. I mean, you always knew you were going to do ceramics, but you took a painting class before you took the ceramics class, and I thought you were an amazing painter. And then I saw your ceramics work, and that was incredible. When you're working at the wheel and you're making something, what are you thinking about? What do you like? Why do you like this so much?
It's weird, but I like the feeling of clay and being hands-on. Painting can be really messy. If you get it on yourself, then you can get it on the painting. And so it's really tedious, where clay is kind of more of you can be a mess. And clay feels like butter, and it's like a nice feeling to throw clay. I don't know. It's really weird.
That's wonderful.
It's just kind of soothing, I guess. If you were to do like a mud mask, like that's kind of what it feels like throwing. And what I think about doing it is like, if I'm pulling it right and hoping it doesn't flop.
So you do have to have a lot of acceptance of various projects not turning out and trying again. And
yeah, there's a high fail rate with a lot of things. Nothing's complete until you take it all the way through the glazing, and even then you could still break it. I just broke one of my jars this week that was completely finished, and it just kind of had a weak spot and cracked in half. So it happened.
How do you handle that fact that things could break?
Yeah. You just kind of go with the flow again. If you lose it, it's sad, but it is what it is, and you just got to move on and say that, oh, I can make that again another time.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to take that to heart. I've decided that line is a good line for life.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How are you feeling about graduation? And
it's sad, but again, we're not the only ones going through it. I think I've thought about that a lot, is that I'm not the only one going through it. It's everyone around the world in the class of 20 is going through it. So that makes me feel a little better that I'm not being singled out. But again, it is what it is. It happened. And I'll stay connected with the friends that, I will stay connected with. And we have a group chat that we all can talk to each other through and say goodbye. And
yeah. One of the reasons I love pottery so much is because of the verse that in Isaiah, I have to read it, but it says, yet you, Lord, are our Father. We are the clay, you are the potter. We are all the work of your hand. it's just this lovely verse. It shows a kind of intimacy between God and us. And you said something when you were talking about clay that made me think of that verse again, that that you like the way it feels, you like to work with it, you are thinking about how you're going to pull it or push it, and that sense of how am I going to help make this clay be what it's supposed to be. And isn't it kind of neat to think maybe God thinks of us that way, that how can I help this individual, unique human being be all they're supposed to be? And as you get close to graduation now, maybe that'll help a little bit, knowing that even when things are so uncertain, that God has this kind of unique purpose for you, Katlyn. You've got so much ahead for you and such a bright future. You've worked so hard for it. And I think there's a lot ahead in that regard. Anything else? Yeah.
Adding something on to that, when we make pottery or like any art, but pottery too, no matter like who it goes to, I think it's really cool. I always kind of think about this when I'm giving it to someone, or someone like buys it at a show or something. My fingerprints are always going to be on that pot, and my hands worked with that. And so every time someone buys something, my fingerprint's always with it. So part of myself is with the pottery, so it goes on to someone else. So I don't know, it feels really good to think about that in a way.
That's a great image.
My fingerprint is with someone.
Yep. That's a neat image at both levels. At the human level, it's a neat image that what you've created, even though it's away from you, it's still it has a part of you in it. And then I also like that about God, that, God's fingerprints are on each of us, and God is with us and a part of us and a part of what we're doing. Anything else you want to share with us as you close up this time? And
no, just keep a lookout for the art department and what all the seniors are putting out for our thesis soon.
Yeah, yes, I hope we can. We'll post that with this when we have that. If anybody wanted to buy your pottery after seeing this, not that this video is about that, but if they did, what would you?
There's gonna be, for the thesis, on my things, there will be captions with each picture of prices and availability. And it's gonna be kind of a first come, first serve thing. But yeah, you can buy the pieces once they're shown.
Of course, what I'm worried about now is she's gonna knock something over, so we should probably wrap this up. But you're amazing. You've been a great help to us in the office too, I know, and we've just enjoyed you being around so much. Katlyn, we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Blessing for you, and happy congratulations as you finish up.
Thanks.
Thanks.